morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with KPP Live. My name's Kyle Roy, financial advisor with Kentucky Planning Partners, joined with Rob Davenport, CEO of Kentucky Planning Partners. And this show is dedicated to providing you with advice for life so that you can live richly and realize the life that you've earned. Welcome, Rob. Hello.
I feel good. I got my first shot yesterday. That makes me feel really good.
Tell everybody about that. How was the experience? I know people are anxious about it. People are getting sick.
Well, we're in Group 1C, like a million other people, and but finding a shot here locally in town is difficult. So my wife found me a shot from Walgreens in Frankfort, Kentucky, and that's where I went yesterday to get my shot. So it was easy. I got a little bit of a sore arm, but other than that, I feel really good about it. I got to go back in 2 weeks because it wasn't the J&J shot. I think it was the Pfizer shot. So would
you recommend everybody?
Oh, I think so. And I think so. You know, what's interesting is this morning I was at my physical at my doctor's office, and she was taking blood, and I was saying, how long have you been vaccinated? And she was telling me since January. And then just unsolicited, she said, I'm so glad that you got your shot yesterday. I wish more people would go get their shot and get vaccinated because it's safe, but we fear that a quarter of Americans are fearful of it. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know what the right answer is, but I feel emotionally good that I got the shot. So we'll see how it all turns out.
Well, and I know there's a lot of we're not medical experts, but quite frankly, I think we can know that if you're given the green light to go get the shot, some people might feel guilty where you might find yourself in 1C but feel like you're taking somebody else's place. Quite frankly, this is my opinion. If you're not in a position to be controlling how the shots are distributed, just go get it.
Yeah.
Just go get it, right? It's one of those things where the sooner we can get this behind us, the sooner we'll. So I'm glad your experience was
It would make me feel really good if everyone here at this firm got the shot. And we're all eligible now. With 1C, but I still think the priority should be some of the older people around us. But anyway, that's what's new in my life.
Oh, well, good. Yeah, well, I'm glad you're here.
And
and today's show, I think, is a really important one in that we're going to be talking about financial planning.
Good.
What is a financial plan? I think there's a lot of confusion surrounding financial planning. So this show is for anybody that's really interested in what it means to have a financial plan. It's different than investment management. It's different than allocation of your investment portfolio, just picking the right stocks or picking the right mutual funds. Financial planning is something that's inherently different, and it's something, quite frankly, that we take very seriously at our firm and on our team. So we're going to talk about that.
Well, it's the core of what we do every day, and it's our belief structure. So, Kyle, you're absolutely right. I'll tell you what, sometimes when people ask me what is financial planning, I start by saying what it is not. Mm-hmm. It is not going through life collecting some financial products. A checking account, a savings account, a home with a mortgage. Oh, now we have a 401k or 2 or 3 of them, okay, if we've changed jobs. A Roth IRA, a traditional IRA, credit cards, etc. What happens is people just go through life and they buy things and they accumulate stuff. I mean, take a long, hard look at your garage or the unfinished portion of the basement and tell me how much you've accumulated over life. But a financial plan is more than that. That is not financial planning. That is creating a portfolio of unrelated products. Mm-hmm. And so financial planning takes a step back from that and says, let's just pause and take an inventory of everything that you have. Not at the granular level, but let's put a value on the automobiles and let's look at the value of all the investment accounts and the home and all the debts and etc. And then let's create a map to figure out how your wealth accumulation plan is formulated and compare that to where it needs to be in the future.
And so there are really 3 parts to the financial plan that we're going to talk about today. It's really a 3-legged stool.
Right.
And the 3 parts we're going to talk about, and Rob's going to go into some detail on these things, is First is the balance sheet. So in other words, you can't have a financial plan unless you have these 3 core tenets. First, a balance sheet. Second, a risk profile. Understanding your risk profile, how you understand and perceive risk, and how that risk is aligned with your goals. And third, your goals, your objectives, and what are you working toward? So all those things in your garage or your 401k, the chances are is that you have those things, but are they aligned with your goals? And the importance of goals, and what are you measuring your performance to? How do you know you're doing well? So let's first talk about that first leg of the stool, the balance sheet.
The balance sheet is similar to when I go in to get my annual physical, like I just did this morning. And what's the very first thing they have you do when you go into the doctor's office?
Apart from sit in the waiting room.
You stand on their scale.
Yeah.
And it gives you a reading. And I hate that part. So their scale is always 10 pounds more than my scale. So I hate that part of the physical. It's the easiest part, but I got to stand on their scale, and I promise you, I remove my phone, I remove my keys, I take off my jacket.
No shoes.
No, they make you leave your shoes
on.
But
Man.
The balance sheet and what we do when we sit down with people is we're having them stand on the scale. And we all know how emotionally challenging that is and difficult for some of us. So that is the balance sheet. We have to stand on the scale and see where we are at that given point in time. The blood work and the urine analysis and all that they see from those tests, that's a little bit more of the risk tolerance, right? Are some things out of line? Are they all normal given your age and your weight and your family history? So I use analogies to help explain our process in a manner that people can understand.
And it's a beautiful analogy because how many financial professionals, for lack of a better term, right? Financial advisors, brokers, whatever the term is.
Right.
How many just say, forget about the x-ray, forget about going on the scale, forget about taking inventory. I'm just going to grow your money as best we can. Right, so that's a clear differentiator from building a financial plan, right? Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And I think advisors have good intentions. I don't necessarily believe that they have good training. So they have good intentions. I think they have good hearts. They just don't know the process to take clientele through that is of value to the client family. The money in our business is when you capture assets to manage or when you sell financial products. So unfortunately, advisors who I think have good intentions many times rush to that conversation. They want to convince you to roll your money over with them so that they can invest it in some magical set of products, which will make you feel good.
So without the balance sheet, it's almost how can it not be about the client, right? Like that's the point. I think so. Having that balance sheet gives us and any advisor the ability to really know who they're serving and how everything's working together. Because what I find is that oftentimes people won't realize that their rental properties or their cash savings accounts or their life insurance, if they have cash value in life insurance, they won't think of those assets as part of their investment portfolio.
Right.
Whereas when you take balance sheet, you take stock of everything that you have, they very much are a part of your portfolio. And it's so important to make sure that no part of your financial management is happening in a vacuum.
That's right.
Because every asset needs to be working together like gears to be able to move you towards your goals. And I really scratch my head wondering how people do it without taking stock. I really do.
I don't know.
You know, it's like a doctor. If your doctor prescribed you meds without taking stock,
as I'm sitting in the lobby, he just tosses me some pills and says, "Here, take one of those." Yeah, go away.
There's really no difference.
No, I know.
Right. So now let's talk about what does risk tolerance mean? So the first part is the balance sheet,
Sure.
getting that x-ray,
Sure.
getting that blood work done, knowing what allergies you have. I love that analogy, it's beautiful. So the second leg is risk.
Sure.
Talk about how we profile and help clients understand risk.
Well, I think you have to understand there is intelligence associated with investing, but really there should be more emotional intelligence invested when building a portfolio. In other words, are you emotionally capable of having a portfolio that can swing in wide ranges, meaning you could go down 20 or 30 or 40% in any given year? We've seen these occurrences happen. They're scary when we're in those occurrences, but risk tolerance is how much bandwidth, how much movement can you stomach in a portfolio? I can stomach a lot in my portfolio because I plan to continue to come to work for the next 20 years. So it's not as fearful for me. But if I were 70 years old and I had no more wage income coming in, and I needed to live off of some of the income that my investments were producing, I might have an entirely different set of feelings associated with the amount of volatility I can emotionally handle. And I think that's something we need to all figure out internally. And so we have questionnaires and financial programs and risk tolerance tools that help assist us in knowing what your emotional tolerance is for market volatility.
And it's a process. It's not cookie cutter. And that so many people think because they're young, they should be aggressive.
Right.
And generally that might be the case, but if being aggressive means you literally can't sleep at night, right? Then instead of cruising at a 100-mile-an-hour speed limit, you might benefit pulling back on the throttle and cruising at 80 miles an hour, right? We have clients in their 60s and 70s who have been frustrated by past advisors telling them to slow down simply because of their age, when they say, no, I don't want to, right? But we want to make sure that, to Rob's point, we always like to say volatility is the cost of risk. And so many times we see clients not understand risk, first of all. So having a process, and part of that planning, we spend a lot of time answering questions, making sure clients understand what risk means. What does an experience look like when you are in an aggressive allocation? Because it's the experience that you have that will determine whether or not you're going to enjoy saving, enjoy working toward those goals, and stay the course.
We have some older clientele, let's just say they're 70, we'll use that as that age, who have wonderful direct income sources coming in. They have a couple Social Securities, there might be a pension or two, there might be income from other investments they've made, it could be a portfolio of rental homes, it could be a whole slew of things. And those people, it could be some required minimum distributions, even though those rules have changed to be 72 now. But we have some families that have wonderful income that comes in. So those families might then not have to really touch any of their investable assets. And so some of those families have the ability to therefore have a little bit more volatility in their lives. They could be a little bit more equity oriented versus the person who has one Social Security, no pension, no other income, maybe a paid off home, we hope. And so we have to really think about all of their financial, independence is going to come from their saved portfolios. And what precious those portfolios are, because we cannot afford and they cannot afford to lose that money. We know it could go up and down a little bit, but with a really conservative allocation, we hope to minimize that volatility. and create income, because it's all about the income for retirees. It's not so much about how much your net worth is. It's more about what does that translate into monthly income for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I find more and more that risk, and it's so important for clients to understand, investors to understand it, risk is very personal.
Yes.
It's personal to you. Every individual has their own risk tolerance. And there's almost, I don't know if guilt's the right word, but people sometimes feel guilty when they don't fit the cookie cutter mold that they might see on the news or read in the financial magazines, because I'm 70 years old, but I feel like I shouldn't be conservative, right? My grandfather would always say there might be snow on the roof, but there's still a fire in the furnace.
Right.
Right? So, but just know and understand that every single person, in order to have a financial plan, it's important to understand that risk. And it's not our job to determine what your level of risk is.
That's right.
It's our job to determine that we are allocating your assets to conform with your level of risk, and that your balance sheet, your rental properties carry a certain amount of risk. Your cash in the bank, we want to make sure that your investments are complemented and your risk is taken into account, your entire portfolio. So the balance sheet and the risk work together that way.
That's right. And different accounts can have different risk associated with them. So we know bank accounts have no risk, right? I mean, very little risk. On a scale of 1 to 100, we would give that a score of 1 being the most conservative. 99 would be the most aggressive, right? But we might have other accounts that are in the 30s, because we might want to consume some of that money for the building of a new home in 5 years, or a vacation we've always wanted to go to or go on with our family in 2 years. So different accounts might have different risk tolerance associated with them. But overall, we have to understand how all those work together to still come within the client's suitable risk tolerance range. So, I know we talk a lot about risk, but it's important because a lot of investors, they want the returns of the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ or the Dow Jones Industrial Index, but they don't want the risk. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have all the upside, and then when it gets stormy outside and scary, you can't say, "Oh, I don't want to have any fear associated with a falling market." Okay, or I can't have any loss, but I want all the gain. It does not work that way. Okay,
Ever.
No.
And that's a perfect entree into the third leg of the stool, and that's objectives.
Right.
Because you're right, so many people don't have the planning done. So the only thing the average investor compares their performance to is, quote, the market.
Exactly.
Right? And a common question I ask people is, well, what market?
Right.
Well, the stock market. Okay, well, which one? Right? And this becomes spooky, and it's not because we're pretentious about it, but we ask these questions because there's so much misinformation and misunderstanding.
Right.
And to compare your performance to the market, whether it's the S&P, the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the EFA, the European exchanges, it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because the third leg of the stool is your goals and your objectives.
That's right.
You do not have a financial plan if you do not have clearly defined, measurable, and attainable goals.
Correct.
And if you're comparing your performance to the market, you're comparing your performance to something you don't control, something that's arbitrary to your life and over probably an arbitrary time period. So let's talk about, Rob, talk about how having a plan gives you the ability to have something to work toward, and talk about why we do that, why it's important.
Well, so after we've built the balance sheet, we know where everything is. We know how much money a person is investing in various retirement accounts. We know what the family's doing. We have an accurate picture as to where we are right now, March 9, 2021, for example. We can look into the future and we can see how much Social Security income is going to be coming into that family and other income sources. So then we can use conservative assumptions, conservative growth rate assumptions 4%, maybe 5% per year growth rate on an equity type portfolio. Could be an IRA invested in stocks or stock mutual funds, etc.
And if I stop you there, so we use, you said 4 or 5% growth rate?
It's right in between 4 and 5. I'd never go below 5%. I mean, above 5%.
And what is the market average?
Oh, much more than that. 8, 9, 10%.
So effectively, in all the plans you built and our team builds,
yes,
we're using very conservative growth assumptions.
That's right. So we want to
Hugely
forecast how successful your current plan is going to be in relation to where it needs to be. It's a series of just simple mathematical equations. We'll do the work for you. Other good financial advisors will do the work for you. But we need to spell it out in English so you can see the trajectory that you're on versus the trajectory that you need to be on. And we have to move you over into that better path to have a better chance of success. Now, down the road, it may be that you're already retired or you're soon to be retired and that you've accumulated a lot. Congratulations. So now you don't need to take so much risk.
Mm-hmm.
So let's forget about market returns. Let's just make sure that the plan works and that you forever hold on to that trophy. You know what I mean? So we don't have to really go for it when you're 70 years old like we might need to when you're 30, because the plan says that at 3 or 4 or 5% a year, you're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
Now we want to do much better than that. But the math says you don't have to take so much risk. Mm-hmm. And that will allow you to enjoy your retirement so much more easily, whereby every day you wake up, it feels like a Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. And that's what retirement should look like.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And having that objective too, having those goals, instead of 1 year after the other,
right,
comparing your performance to the market, which again is arbitrary to your life, we want to make sure that we're measuring your performance of your investments relative to your plan.
Hallelujah.
So instead of having performance be irrelevant to you, performance is going to be not only relevant to you, but directly individual, customized to you.
Correct.
And that's what a plan is. So we've talked about creating a balance sheet, creating a risk profile, making sure you understand your risk profile and how your current investments are allocated relative to that, and then your objectives. What haven't we talked about yet? How your money is going to be managed.
Yeah.
We haven't even got there.
That's right.
And that's
for a reason.
That's right. Without those three things,
exactly,
without a balance sheet, risk profile, objectives, we believe it's irresponsible to make investment recommendations.
I would agree. Especially if you're, I would agree. Too many advisors in this line of work want to get to that conversation right away. Because remember, that's how they get paid. Mm-hmm. They get paid when they sell you something. They get paid when they capture assets. And they forget that you have to run to first and then second and then third and then to home. There's a process. The CFP board puts out a process, and we follow that process. It's very important that people understand the difference between a planner who gets it, who has credentials, who understands how this works, versus a person who's got a big smile on their face and who at the end of the day is probably trying to sell you some type of product. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I love this conversation. If you can't tell, we are very passionate about this. And to break it down and filter it down to 25 minutes is, I mean, we could talk for hours. But if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a balance sheet, you don't understand your risk profile or know how your investments are aligned with your risk profile, if you don't have clearly defined and achievable objectives, and if you don't understand whether or not your assets are working toward those objectives, or if you're working with somebody that is always trying to sell you something,
right,
give us a call at KPP. Our phone number is 502-394-0400. We have 17 financial advisors at KPP that are trained and dedicated to following the planning process, that are fiduciaries, and we take that that term very, very seriously. We are dedicated to putting our clients' interests before our own, and without a repeatable, definable process that's built around you,
Right.
it's quite frankly impossible to execute that standard.
No, well said. Well said. I hope this hits home for some people. I hope you sit back and think about the importance of what we've talked about this morning. And if you don't have a written plan, please understand it's easy to build one. It just takes a few meetings and some dedication on your part to gather up your information and spend some time with our team or another qualified team for that matter. But we do believe in this wholeheartedly, and I know this is the right plan of action for all people looking for a secure financial independence.
You know, and to close out your analogy about going to the doctor, nobody likes going to the doctor, getting on the scale, getting the blood. But 100% of the time when you leave the doctor, you learn the truth.
That's right.
The truth about where you are and whether you're healthy, whether you have health concerns that need to be dealt with. It's all working toward accomplishing your life goal.
Right.
And I promise you, working with a financial advisor, working with a financial planner, it might be anxious at first, but I assure you, once you sit down with our team or any members of our team, you'll realize that it'll be the greatest decision that you'll ever make. So, with that said, on behalf of everybody here at Kentucky Planning Partners, thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing this video, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Again, we're at the heart of Louisville's East End on the corner of Shelbyville and Hurstbourne Lane. Come on up to our office. We've got the best view in Louisville, and we want to share it with you. And just give us a call as well, 502-394-0400. On behalf of everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great week.